Library of Heaven's Path. Chapter 60, The Greatest Person. Zhang Xuan was a transcender, so how could he have known that creating a cultivation technique would result in such astonishment and commotion? As such, he was unable to understand the reason behind the expressions of the students. With a calm face, he took out another book. Zhuoyang, this manual is something I just wrote based on your situation. Cultivate according to it, and your right hand should recover completely within half a month or so. Before anyone could even react, he took out a few more books again and passed them over. Yuan Tao, you have good defensive abilities. The book I passed you the previous time is your fundamental cultivation technique, while this one is aimed at improving your defensive abilities. Wangying and Zhenyang as well, I have compiled your unique characteristics and wrote a book for you two each. If you two were to train according to it, your cultivation should rise swiftly. Since they were all his students, naturally, he couldn't favor one more than the other. Thus, there was a gift for every one of them. These cultivation techniques were made from combining multiple secret manuals from the teacher's compendium pavilion using the Library of Heaven's Path. They were tailored specially for Wangying, Zhuoyang, and the rest of them based on their physical conditions. There were still flaws in there, but there were significantly less of them compared to the other secret manuals. These secret manuals. What an impressive cultivation technique. Regardless of whether it is Wangying, Zhuoyang, or Zhenyang, they were all people who were capable of telling the value of a manual. Just by taking a look at these nameless manuals, all of them trembled vigorously in agitation. The manuals could be said to be tailored perfectly to them, not to mention how incredibly high-tiered they are. Comparing the manuals they just received with the ones they cultivated before, the other ones were like trash amongst all trash. There was totally no way to put the both of them together. Teacher, these books, we are allowed to name them? Unable to hold it in anymore, Wangying asked. Feel free to do so. Zhang Xuan waved his hand. His students stared at one another, their fists subconsciously clenched tightly together. Writing a single cultivation technique was already an incredible feat. Yet, to write 5 of them, and each one was tailored for each of them, even allowing them to name their technique themselves. This capability and this generosity. It was unheard of in the entire Hongtian Academy. The crux of it all was that these cultivation techniques were made specially to cater to their needs. No matter how vast one's knowledge was and how enlightened one was towards the path of cultivation, they would have surely expended a lot of effort to create them. It was very likely that he hadn't slept for the entire night. Their teacher stayed awake for the entire night to toil on these cultivation techniques for them, and yet they doubted if their teacher possessed the abilities to guide them. This was too. The eyes of the crowd turned red again. This sentiment was equivalent to changing their entire lives? Thank you, teacher. The 5 of them knelt down simultaneously. Staring at Zhang Xuan, who was standing before them, unwavering determination appeared in their eyes. Zhanglashi, rest easy. We promise to never divulge these cultivation techniques outwards. Whoever divulges them will receive any type of punishment you mete out willingly. Never divulge them. All right? These cultivation techniques created using the Library of Heaven's Path paled far in comparison to the Heaven's Path divine art, so Zhang Xuan wasn't too bothered about it. At this moment, hearing his students say these words, he agreed with it nonchalantly. This is the disposition of a true master. Seeing Zhanglashi indifferent to this matter, the students conceded to him willingly. What is a master? This is. Who is the greatest person? He is. To be capable but humble, misunderstood but unfazed, humiliated but composed and calm in the face of sudden situations. To have such a teacher is a tremendous blessing of theirs. Zhang Xuan didn't know that in this moment, he had already ascended from the ranks of a mortal to a god within the hearts of his students. After instructing everyone to cultivate as soon as possible, Zhang Xuan was free once more. A teacher should not be keeping a watch on his students, but rather, allow them to train and learn by themselves. A teacher was only responsible for pointing out their faults and direct them towards the correct path. Now that all of them have suitable cultivation techniques, as long as they cultivated as per normal, they would be able to achieve acceptable results. Hesitation appeared on Shen Bairu's flawless face. However, thinking about the wonders the young man showed her yesterday, her curiosity burned once more and she determinedly walked over. She was the goddess of the academy, the idol of all male teachers and students. Every day, the number of flowers and presents the teachers and students gifted her was countless. Even so, she was nonchalant to it and never tried to approach a teacher of the opposite sex of her own accord. However, the young man yesterday attracted her as though a mystery, causing her to walk over without any say on the matter. In fact, she wasn't even able to conduct a lesson properly this morning due to it. I'm just going over to expose him. There isn't any other reason to it. Finding an excuse for herself, she heaved a sigh of relief and proceeded forward in large strides. Speaking of this Zhang Xuan, she had known him since a long time ago. However, as she never really interacted with him, she wasn't too knowledgeable of his affairs. Even so, based on the descriptions of others, there were only 3 adjectives to describe him. Worst. Worst. And finally, still worst. He was reputed for being the worst teacher in the academy. All along, she had thought so as well. However, yesterday, her thoughts were overturned. He could remember all the contents of a book just by casually flipping through it. Despite scoring a 0 in his teacher qualification examination, he was able to come up with multiple answers for the questions in it. Just by eating a meal, she realized that he was a gourmet. Furthermore, to be able to persuade the sky-shattering lion to listen to him so easily. What used to be the worst teacher in her eyes became an enigma. Incomprehension clouded over her no matter how she contemplated over it. Forget it, I will stop thinking about it. Today, I will definitely get an answer out of him. Harumphing coldly, she raised her jade-like face. Only then did she realize that she was already standing right before Zhang Xuan's classroom. Just as she was about to enter, she saw a mummy-like person standing outside the door. Yao Han was in a dilemma. Yesterday, when he made a move and roared publicly at Zhang Xuan in the classroom, he was reprimanded by the young mistress when they returned. After which, when he returned back to his dwelling at night, he thought about the matter and rage welled up in him. The origin of this mess was that trash of a teacher, Zhang Xuan. If not for him committing something indecent to the young mistress, causing the young mistress to be blackmailed by him, how could her face blush completely red as she insisted on becoming his student? If not for that, he wouldn't have been beaten up to such a state when he went over to assault him at night. Unable to persuade his young mistress, his original intention was to inform the city lord of the matter, so that he could step forth and settle the issue. However, Baiyu City was a long distance away, and even the best horse would take at least half a month for a 2-way journey. If he were to really leave, what if that beast of a teacher were to do something immoral? If so, even if he were to die, it would be hard for him to swallow the blame. What should I do? Young mistress would definitely be unhappy with me if I were to barge in right now. However, if I do not barge in, she might get bullied and hurt. Just like that, Yao Han stood at the entrance for a very long time, perplexed. Who are you? While he was still in a dilemma between the 2 course of action to take, an aureole-like voice sounded. Lifting his head to take a look, he saw a beautiful lady standing at a short distance away looking at him with a puzzled expression. This beautiful lady was around 20-year-old or so. She was dressed in a light purple robe, which brought out her elegant figure perfectly. With skin as smooth as cream, despite not moving much, she was still absolutely gorgeous. I don't think that there's any need for me to tell you who I am. No matter what, Yao Han was a veteran who had experienced the harsh world. Thus, he recovered quickly and harumphed. You are just a little girl while I am the butler of Bio City Lord's residence. Are you worthy of having me report my identity to you? Besides, most importantly of all, how can I dare to proclaim my identity in such a state? Refusing to identify yourself? What do you intend to do here by covering your face then? The beautiful lady frowned. Gadang, her heart suddenly pounded and a thought flashed through her mind. This fellow, it can't be that. He is hired by Shangbin to teach Zhang Xuan a lesson.